Hi, this is Chris German, and welcome back to the Apartment Dealer Show. In this session, you're going to hear from someone I have a great deal of respect for, Mr. Steven Spierer. Steven is one of California's top real estate attorneys, a longtime apartment investor, and the managing partner of a syndication that owns over 3,000 units across multiple states. And that combination matters, because Steven doesn't just know the law, he lives with the same risks that you and I do as landlords. Now, if you're an apartment owner or working towards becoming one, subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and like this video. It helps us continue bringing practical, real-world guidance to investors just like you. For more than 40 years, Steve's been in the trenches buying, managing, and protecting real estate. He's seen what actually happens when things go wrong: lawsuits, title mistakes, estate issues, and poorly structured ownership that exposes everything that you've built. In this session, Steve breaks down the real issues that keep apartment owners up at night, how lawsuits really start, and how to reduce their exposure, why ownership structure matters more than most owners realize, how poor planning can take your family's wealth and lose it to taxes, attorneys, or family disputes. If you ever asked yourself, is my portfolio actually protected? This is not a video that you want to skip. Now let's jump in.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So this is the part where you participate. You're going to ask questions, and that's what I'm going to talk about, is whatever you lead me to talk about. I could just stand here and talk about what I want to talk about. My mother always said, generally speaking, Stephen is generally speaking, but I'd rather talk about the subjects that interest you. It can be real estate law, purchasing property, selling property, estate planning, getting yourself organized for succession planning, how to get millions or tens of millions of dollars from one generation to the next without taxes, how to protect your liability, anything you want except landlord tenant. That was Mike Brennan, and he'll be back up here in a few minutes so you can address questions there. Landlord tenant is a very specialized thing, and I think Mike covered it beautifully. As Chris was saying, I'm one of you. My partner, John Woodward, and I have been running a real estate syndication operation for the same 47 years that I've been practicing real estate and business law. And so we have your experience. We have a little over 3,000 apartment units in California, Washington, Arizona, and Colorado. We have our own full-time management staff of about 110 people, W-2 employees who do the maintenance, management, bookkeeping, and accounting for it. And I'm proud to say we have dozens and dozens of people now who have been with us for decades who are retired on the money that we send them every month. And we could change this afternoon, you never know, but we've never been sued by a tenant. So the idea is that if you are concerned about succession planning, the favor you can do for your kids is to have a proper will and a proper trust in place, to have proper LLCs and liability insulators in place, to have proper insurance in place. If you were to die and you leave your children a great deal of real estate, it might get eaten up in lawyers' fees, accounting fees, litigation, and confusion. You might have children fighting with each other. With an organized estate plan in place, then none of that happens. It really goes very smoothly. Microphone number 2.
I need to provide housing for my tenants in my 7-unit apartment building in Covina if asbestos testing results are positive prior to a repipe project.
So the short answer is yes. The slightly longer answer is, oh my goodness, yes, because if you have a situation where your tenants are in possession and they're living there, and then you have to make repairs, whether it's asbestos or plumbing or roofing or something that would so disrupt them that they can't live there, you can have them move into a hotel of comparable value. So if it's a very low-end apartment, it's not going to be the Ritz-Carlton. And if it's a very, very high-end apartment, it's not going to be Motel 6. It's going to be some sort of parity. And you can have them continue to pay you rent for the space while you pay for the hotel and the storage of their things if necessary, and the storage of their pets. Well, if that's necessary, you would pay for that. The other way to do it, if you negotiate it, is the tenants can abate the rent, and not pay you rent and then have their own accommodations if they want to do that. But otherwise, you're going to want to do it the way where you pay for their accommodations. If there's something that makes that premises uninhabitable because you're doing construction, then that would be the case.
Yes, I have in my rental agreement, and I've been using it for over 20 years, that the tenant should be receive the property in a good shape and they inspect it. Anything happen regarding maintenance, they are supposed to do it in their own, and I had it.
Got it. So you're saying if something goes wrong and there's maintenance needed, they are the ones who hire the plumber or the
And they
electrician,
pay for it.
and they pay for it. Okay, so I'm not sure if I would say that that's a bad idea or a very bad idea. I'd have to pick between those two. When you do that, you don't have control over the repairs. You don't have control over the selection of the expert, the plumber, the electrician, the roofer, whatever it would be. And yet you're going to be responsible if it turns out badly. You don't have control over the cost. More importantly, you don't have the control over the quality. It is the responsibility of management to handle the maintenance. And so delegating that to a tenant is high risk. It's the same thing as if you said, I never wear a seatbelt and I obviously don't need one because I've never gone through the windshield. It's not good reasoning. It's not good reasoning. So I am not in favor of that. It sounds like an ultra high risk. Microphone.
I've got one building with two issues, two separate tenants. First tenant has been there for a number of years, maybe 10 years, has moved in 3 additional tenants. There were originally 5 tenants, and
Now there are 8?
now there are 8. They want me to
I'm
do
good at math.
they want me to do some work to their unit. I've been doing it piecemeal, but now they want me to remove all the carpeting. It's a 3-bedroom unit. And what I'm telling the tenant is that, I'd rather do this all at once rather than piecemeal. I'd like him to move out if possible. And that's number one. Number two.
So let me hit number 1 first. First of all, when you have 2 tenants and a third tenant moves in, you want to get that tenant to sign a lease. You don't want people who are in there without a unit. When you have 2 tenants who have 2 children, let's say they're 14 and 16 years old, you want to get their names and birthdays while they're 14 and 16 years old, and you put on your calendar on their 18th birthday, you write to them and you say, hey, happy birthday, you're 18, here's a lease you can sign. So that those children, when they reach the age of majority, become that. So when you have 5 tenants and 3 more move in, the first task is to get them on the lease. The other problem that you were describing was now you want them all to move out because why?
They want me to do replace all the carpeting.
They want you to replace all the carpeting. And they want to move out so you can replace the carpeting. Why is that not a one-day?
They do not want to move out.
So they want the carpeting replaced and they don't want to move out.
Right.
So why can't that be done in one day?
Well, I mean, it would entail moving all their furniture out of the unit and then have the work done and then moving it back in. I don't know how long that would take, but
so if you have a skilled carpet layer and they bring in 2 people, 3 people, whatever's necessary, that can be done in a day. I'd much rather do that than have them move into a hotel that you're going to pay for with all the disruption. Also, if the tenants are not present, you run into the problem of them saying, well, gee, you broke this, or your carpet guy stole that. So I'd much rather have it take place on one day and arrange the logistics so you can really do that. And we've had people where we'll have 4 carpet layers in a 3-bedroom unit. We'll have 4 carpet layers come in on one day, move things out, put in the carpet, move things in, and get it done in one day. Does that answer your question? Beautiful. Microphone number 3.
Hi. If we're going to use the strategy of doing the 30-day notice and evicting the people to remodel the units, is there a minimum of cost to doing that minimum so if you get sued, you'll be covered, or particular stuff that you have to do, repipe or electricity, roof? What is the minimum requirement if there is any?
I know
Or
that's
that's
30
30
days.
days.
The minimum required for what?
For the eviction?
Oh, the minimum expenditure? It doesn't have to do with how much money you spend. It depends on the nature of the work. So if you have something that costs a bunch of money, but it can be done in a half an hour, you don't have anybody move out. You do. If you have something that costs a tiny bit, but it's going to take a long time, if it makes the premises uninhabitable, that's when you have to move them out.
For 30 days. That's the no-fault eviction. I think.
You're talking about for-cause eviction.
Yes.
with that idea. It has to do with permits. Mike Brennan.
So the law itself says, you asked if there's specifics. It does. It says actually plumbing or electrical, major systems. So in other words, you can't just remodel the bathroom and say, well, that's why you had to vacate. That's not going to stand. If you update a major system, it will. And in your letter that's going to explain the scope of work, you have to explain to the tenant why the work is taking more than 30 days, along with the permits and everything else that I outlined. And then you're covered. But you better complete the work, because I've had some landlords say, oh, so I just have to pull permits. No, you have to complete the work, because if you don't, you're setting yourself up as an easy target.
All of that is absolutely true, and Chris is right. And I'll add this. Courts look to and promote good faith behavior according to reasonable standards. So if you're a landlord who is looking technically of how can I really comply and get away with something, it's not going to, I'm not suggesting that's what you're suggesting. But if a landlord is doing that, those are the landlords that get their brains sued out by plaintiff's attorneys who then say, look, you were in technical compliance, but you violated the spirit of the law. We're going to sue you and ask for punitive damages against you. We're going to make charges that won't even be covered by your insurance. If you act in good faith and you're really trying to repair the unit and you're really doing something major, that's great. If it's a trick to say, oh, it's a just cause eviction, we're just going to move them out and I'm going to comply maybe, or I'm going to get a permit and not do the work as Chris said, or I'm going to do something else, you're going to get sued. And the environment right now is such that that is exactly what will happen. So if what you're really trying to do, and examine yourself, if what you're really trying to do is just get rid of the tenant, this isn't the way to do it. If what you're really trying to do is do repairs to preserve the property, to enhance the property, repairs that need to be made, do the repairs, and that'll be fine.
Question about tenant with non-payment of rent for 3 months. They have all their possessions in the house, but they are visiting with a friend, our family member in the state of Michigan, and we can't serve them. How do we get possession of the apartment?
Have they abandoned the apartment?
No.
No. And have they paid the rent?
Non-payment of rent.
They're not.
So this is going on as long as they're out of the state, not in possession, and not available to deliver.
So they are not paying the rent and they're out of state.
So
one of the things that we have done in the past, and Mike Brennan might have a better idea about this, but what we have done in the past is we simply have our attorney service, which is a service that helps attorneys serve things, get a process server in Mississippi or Nebraska or wherever they are and serve them there. California has a long arm statute for the Code of Civil Procedure section 410.10 that says that you can exercise jurisdiction over someone who's outside if they have minimum legal contacts with the state of California, and that would qualify. So what we would do is hire a process server to do that. But again, Mike, who will be up here in a few minutes, might have a different approach. Can we get a microphone for this man right here, right after this lady right here? Microphone 4.
Okay. In my lease agreement regarding guests who stay over 10 days cumulative, so the tenant has asked for permission and then landlord agreed to the parents staying for 4 months. So there's an additional rent or it's not rent, it's just a charge for the additional occupants. It's in the city of Pasadena, and so collecting the additional per month is now exceeding the rent control amount.
I'm going to tell you, say again, there was a time when we did unlawful detainers and evictions. This has become so volatile that we refer our evictions to Mike, because all of these rules change, and they change weekly. You heard Mike a few minutes ago. He was the guy who came up and scared everybody half to death for good reason. Say that he spends most of his time getting up to speed and remembering and learning what the rules are. That's what Mike Brennan said, and he's right. So Mike is the one who's going to have to answer landlord-tenant questions. Right here, sir.
I have a question with regards to some of the implications of Prop 19 here in California. If you want to pass a piece of property, in my case would be to my partner, what are the criteria to make that not trigger a change in the property tax assessment?
So this is another technical nightmare. And so what has to happen is it depends on how you're holding title, what the relationship is to the person that you're doing, how much of the interest in the property are you transferring. There are, I think, 8 different categories of things that go into this. It's part of an overall estate plan.
Right.
So if you have an estate plan with a proper will and a proper trust, LLCs in the proper places, and you set it up correctly, most of the time we can get a property transfer to many groups of people, of children and people in relations, without a property tax reassessment.
Do they have to live in the home?
That's another factor.
Okay.
So these are all different factors. There are some when you can rent them out and some where you can't.
Okay.
So this should be an integrated part of your estate plan.
Okay.
That's really what has to happen. So as you can see, the panel has arrived. And what we're going to do now is take a bunch of questions. Do I have a couple of minutes left for another set of questions or no?
Yeah.
Yes.
My wife and I were both retired. We own various pieces of property. We have apartments, we have condos, we have commercial buildings. We have been told that it would be wise, and I wonder what your feeling on this, that we should have an LLC for each piece of property to protect our personal wealth.
This is a great question. So an LLC, a limited liability company, protects you from liability. And here's how it works. Think of an LLC as a watertight door on a ship. So the watertight door closes as the ship is sinking, and the people on the wrong side of the door probably drown. The people on the right side of the door are safe. So the LLC is a forward-facing shield, and it owns the property that's in it. And if a lawsuit comes in, and that property is at risk. If you don't have adequate insurance, or the liability is too big, or the insurance doesn't apply, you could lose some of the equity or all the equity in that property. But the shield holds, which means that lawsuit cannot get, if it's all done properly, behind the shield to all the other properties you own, to your house, to your stocks, to your bonds, to your business, to your cash. It's a limitation of liability. It works like a corporation in that way. So if you own a piece of income property, it should be in that LLC. Now the question is, can you put 2 or 3 or 5 pieces of property in that LLC? You can, but they're all exposed to that liability. So if you had 3 properties in the LLC and a lawsuit came in and was devastating for one of those reasons I mentioned or others, you could lose the equity in all 3. So the reason to have a separate LLC for each property is to protect all the other properties from this one, and to protect all the other properties from this one, from the liability generated by this one. And then there are times when you have to have a single asset LLC because the lender requires it. Then you'd have no choice. It's one for each one. So the question is, can you put a rider or an umbrella on the policy to protect the properties in the LLC? Sure. But the question always is, what's actually covered by that policy? So most people who don't really study their insurance with their broker and really make sure they're covered end up having gaps and overlaps. The gaps are the dangerous ones because it's things you're not covered for, and the overlaps are a waste of money because you're insuring things that don't need to be insured. So it becomes a strategic question, and most people look at it and say, well, I've got insurance, so I guess I'm covered. Don't do that. sit with your insurance broker, really talk with them, really listen to them, find out what's covered and what's not, and take the time and the trouble, most people don't, to make sure that you absolutely have got it covered.
That was Steven Spierer, one of the sharpest legal minds in this business, and someone who actually walks the same path you're on as an investor. Here's the reality. A lot of investors do the hard part right. They buy, improve, and hold. Then they lose control because they didn't protect what they built. Structure matters. Documentation matters. Planning ahead matters. Take what Steven shared and use it to tighten things up. Your ownership structure, your insurance coverage, your estate plan. That's how you stay in control when pressure shows up. And we're not done. The next video in this series shifts from defense to offense. How investors are making strategic moves in this market to create long-term wealth instead of reacting to uncertainty. If you've not done so already, subscribe to our channel, turn on alerts so you get the next video released in this series, and give the video a like. And if you found the video helpful, one of these other videos is sure to help you as well. I'm Chris German from The Apartment Dealer, wishing you positive cash flow, tenants who behave, and much protection from Uncle Sam. Till next time.